Uh, Life before the pandemic, it was nice. It was on the up and up. I miss the
And right
routine.
after sound check.
I miss load-ins. I really miss load-outs.
The environment.
Everybody wants
We're
to
not going to
see,
get back to that.
their latest performance to their
It's
new
like
song,
nobody's
and how are they
about
gonna,
that. Nobody's
breathe.
thanking us for that.
I'm
It
very
really is a
mindful
thankless
of
job.
my mental health, and I take it very seriously.
Okay, peace and welcome everyone to What's Up Roadie. How you doing? I am Noelle Jordan, creator and executive producer for What's Up Roadie. In my career, I am a live entertainment and touring lighting designer, stage manager, and backline technician. What's Up Roadie was created as a safe space for the 12 million strong live entertainment and theatrical professionals. This is a place for us to come and really talk it out about how this global pandemic has impacted our careers, our lives, and essentially our mental well-being. Whether we are missing the life or looking for new careers, this is the space where we will talk about it. Today, we are joined by an amazing, and if I must say personally, an illustrious panel and mental health advocate. I encourage everyone to engage in the live chat on the What's Up Roadie Facebook Live page. In today's episode, this is our final episode of the season, episode 9, and we are rounding this out with dance and regional theater. Our moderator for today is Omar Ingram. Omar is the programs director for the International Association of Blacks in Dance, working extensively also as the association's production manager for their annual conference and festival. And Omar is a proud graduate of Howard University with a bachelor's of fine arts in musical theater and a minor in arts administration. Hey, Omar, how are you doing?
What's up, Noelle? I'm good. It's we in COVID, but this is gonna be a fun conversation, and we got all of our fine arts family here. So let's get it out the way. HU.
You know?
Well, some people on mute, so let's try that again. HU.
You know?
All right, that's a little bit better. So that we know who we got on the screen. We've got Neel McNeill. We were in school together. In addition to her role as the executive director of Definition Theater, Neel serves as the managing director of theater and performance studies at the University of Chicago. We've got Kathy Perkins, lighting designer with us, who has designed over 400 productions in over 4 decades. She is also a scholar and author of 6 anthologies, a graduate of Howard University and the University of Michigan. She is professor emerita at University of Illinois and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. We've got Royce Zackery, who is the head coordinator of dance arts at Howard University. He's also an alum of the American Ballet Theater, and he was or is still a teacher and choreographer who was on faculty at the Alvin Ailey Extension Program. We've got my boss, President and CEO of the International Association, Denise Saunders Thompson, who served at Howard University. One, she was a student, then she taught for 17 years as a professor. She also most recently was professorial lecturer at American University in their graduate arts management degree program. And then bringing it home for us, making sure we're all here together and sane. We've got Rogí Banks, who is our mental health advocate, a 2-time graduate of Howard University. She is advancing youth development via arts and mental health education in the DC school system. What's up, y'all? How you doing?
Amazing. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
All right, so a thing we do at IABD, we ground the space, as one of my colleagues would say, by just asking what is your intention for the room. So if you just give me one word of how you enter the space today. I'm gonna kick it off with Denise because she's used to doing this.
Thanks, Omar. I am
I have more than one word today, but I'll use I am showing up inquisitive today.
All right, who you passing it to?
Oh, let me pass it to Neel. Hi, Neel.
I'm showing up to uplift. That's been my vibe this entire pandemic, is uplifting. We need it. I'm gonna throw it to Royce.
I think through this whole pandemic, I've been trying to be more, I would say, absorbing of my students on what they need. So absorbing.
Royce, who you passing it to?
Oh, Doc Ross.
Thank you. Today in this space, and honestly, it's just an ongoing process. I would say I'm showing up in the spirit of connecting and reconnecting. We're all in different spaces in our lives, as well as in our professions. And I think that this conversation is certainly, it's still full circle, regardless of where you are in your profession and in your personal life. So in the spirit of connecting.
I guess I'm the last one.
Yes, I'll pass it on the.
I'm all about supporting. That's what I've been trying to do during this whole pandemic. Support colleagues, former students, and mentees. So that's what I've been about.
Okay, and then Noelle, because you were here with us, I'm gonna go ahead and give you the space to name how you came here, because this was also your brainchild.
Yes, I came here to connect, like Rogí said, but to also inspire community, to inspire developing your community. That's why I'm here. That's why we're all here on What's Up Roadie, is to inspire.
All right, cool. So as we navigate through this conversation today, I'm hoping we can touch in three buckets, so to speak. Just talking about mental space, the physical space for the art form, and then just the community new space, how we move out of this COVID space whenever we are given the go ahead, or if we make our own go ahead. And so in that mental space starting off point, how have you been navigating COVID? I think for me, I started off eating and cooking a lot. And then I realized that all I was wearing was sweatpants and I needed to do something about it. So I started walking anywhere from 3 miles a day to, I think I maxed out at about 21 miles in a day. So that release has been really good for me. Up for anyone, how have you been getting through COVID times?
I guess I would say, oh, no, Kathy, you go ahead.
No, I've been walking like you. I've been walking like 3 to 5 miles a day. I have a dog, and that, he keeps me out. And I've just been embarking on a variety of projects, which has been good. Things that I wouldn't have had time to do otherwise out designing. I've been able to do it here. And I'm working on a project which I decided to do on international playwrights around the theme of home, not necessarily COVID. And it's been a great opportunity for me to meet, writers from all over the world. I've just been, getting information. How do I reach this person or whatever? So when COVID is over, I'll be able to travel to these places where I just met all these new friends. So.
Nice.
Right,
I mean, I guess in the same vein of Kathy, who we actually had the opportunity to work together during COVID.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think at the beginning, it was a deep breath, actually, as sort of like a refocusing, a moment to be like, okay, what is important in my life? What have I been working on? Because me, like many other theater people, we find ourselves working on 2-3 projects at the same time. And so at the beginning, it was really like, oh, I have to stop. Because I have to stop, now is my opportunity to sort of take that moment. But similar, again, to what Kathy said, getting into new and different projects that I wasn't able to sort of accomplish in my regular day-to-day, and really sort of refocusing. I think I always thought of theater you know, bringing in an audience and telling a story. But now it's been a little bit more about like, how can the arts really fulfill your entire life, and sort of figuring out that. And for not only me as an artist and an arts administrator, but for the audience as well. It goes beyond the stage, you know, like there's going to be a lot of good stories that come out of this moment. So.
Since COVID began, so on a professional level, I buckled down. I used the time to, you know, really get this degree done. And so birthed this PhD June 29th. And so that was a huge accomplishment, and started my professional journey as a school psychologist. Personally, in the spirit of connecting, I have my youngest brother. He's in his senior year. And so virtual learning has been all over the place for everyone. And so he's with me now. So we have been reconnecting. I left Detroit. Shout out to the home state university, University of Michigan. I heard that earlier. I left Detroit in 2007. And so he was 4 years old. And so to be able to reconnect with him now in his teenage years has been amazing. Seeing him every day, because I hadn't been back home. So that's how I kind of reconnected in my personal life. And as far as the arts go, I'm a Delta, and so I needed to move around too. I didn't walk 3 miles, Elmer, but I definitely connected with my sorors. And so we would, you know, also connect with our Delta Deers, and have stroll practice every Friday. About 100 people would show up, so it was lit.
So Denise, y'all want to get in on this one?
Let's see. I travel a lot. And so when COVID hit, there was no travel. So I've really been home reconnecting with my family. I have a teenage son now. Kellen, y'all, is 13 years old.
You said teenage and it took my breath away. What?
I know.
Look, he's about as tall as me.
He's taller than me now. And so reconnecting and homeschooling, because, you know, he's not in school. So it's here and, you know, it's ma. So I've been home, you know, reconnecting with my family and also resting. And it's been really good to be home and to have had things just stop for a moment so I can think. Like, I have time to really think about stuff. Being on the road, you kind of come home. Y'all know the deal. You come home, you change your suitcase, and then you go back out. Like, you shower, you sleep in your bed one night, maybe, because you might be working on a project you got to get done, get on the plane the next day or in the car. So it's been nice, actually, to just relax and just reconnect with myself. Like, I felt for a moment, I could see myself coming and going inside and outside of the same door. And that was just overwhelming. So it's been actually good for me in COVID to slow down, just deal with family, deal with self, and then really figure out how to reconnect the organization with services to the field inside of, you know, the Black dance sector.
Wow. For me, it's pretty much a collective of what everyone has said, for the most part. Definitely being able to take care of more of myself, health-wise. Having no choice but to be okay and learning how to be okay with stopping and slowing down. Like, you don't really want to do that, because there's so much that when you are, I guess, driven to I guess, your mission is to help whatever you're doing to be the best that it can be. There is really no time to slow down, right? There's always something to do so that we can make better. So it gave me time to actually sit down and think about how to make things better, but also how to make things better for myself so I can be better for other people. And that was haven't had a chance to do that for a very long time. And then also connection with family as well. So and other projects that I want to do for myself, that's going to help, you know, also help, I think help me, but also help HU Arts, help the arts department. So yeah, definitely.
Okay, before I take us out of the mental space, because Royce said something that kind of hit me about, we kind of don't have a choice but to be okay. And I was big, I think, over the last couple of months to really just be like, but I'm actually not okay. And like naming for myself, like, I need a moment and I'm gonna give myself the space to have this moment because this is not normal. There in no world, Denise travels a lot and I traveled a little bit more than her. And so there is no world where like, I'm not accustomed to sitting at home every day. And I needed to address like, oh, this is different and my body is reacting to this differently. I say all that to say, Rogí, as our mental health advocate, are there any tips or points that we kind of want to name for anyone watching that they might want to be responsive to, respectful of, et cetera?
So it's a thing that we say in the mental health world, and it's the body keeps the score. So I think you hit the nail on the head, Omar, in terms of listening to your body. So it's one thing to be okay with stopping, as Royce said, and then there's another thing that when you stop, how are you analyzing, you know, the reason why you stopped and those signals that your body is giving you. And I'm glad that this topic circled around to that, because that is something, I didn't name it, but it is something that I've been doing as well. Whether it's, you know, certain crooks or, you know, in your body that you're kind of noticing and like you said, naming it. Things that are tied to emotions. Behavior is real. And so I think it's important that when you're studying a behavior, you look at, okay, what is it I'm doing? What happened prior, right, to me engaging in this behavior? And then what was the consequence? Really doing a lot of self-analysis during this COVID time, because how else can you come out of it successful if we don't take that time to stop, reconnect, and make sense of what your body is communicating to you.
All right. Any responses, anything, or I'm trying to be mindful. Go ahead.
Well, the first thing just to your point, Rogí, I was just going to say, and that's hard. That's a hard thing to do. You know what I mean? And not to say that like you wake up one day and you're like, oh, girl, me and you better with each other now today. No, it's something that does like take a process. And even like with connections with other people, you know, I found myself having conversations. I'm one of 6 children. So, and we all live in different cities. So, you know, that to that traveling point, like I haven't been able to see my family who live in more heavily hit like areas, me being in Chicago, that like you really did have to find a new way to even connect with others that you were used to being able to hop in the car, hop on a plane and see, you know, however when. So it's like almost finding yourself and reconnecting with yourself, but having to find new ways to communicate with others, whether that be friends or family. And that's tough all at once. That was definitely something that I think really struck me at the beginning of the pandemic.
And I want to,
no, Royce, you good? Go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to say one more thing, just to further along the body, you know, keeping the body and versus the mind keeping the score, because what is your personal definition of stopping? And so that was something that I had to, because even though I'm stopping, right, but it's all relative, because I'm stopping being physical, right? Then I'm thinking that I'm stopped and I'm relaxing in comparison to what you normally do. But Lord behold, when I was like, oh, this actually gives me more time to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I that I really, really want to do, and really had a chance. So when I first started, I really hadn't stopped. I just stopped being as physical, and I had more energy. I had way more energy, right? I needed less to eat because I wasn't being physical. So I was like, oh, let's run. So I hadn't stopped until I was actually forced to stop. And because I got pneumonia, and I hadn't been sick in I think about like 15 years. No cold, no sniffy nose, no nothing, no anything at all. I could be around kids, I don't get anything. But all of a sudden, I stopped being physical and I kept pushing. And then my body said, okay, you know what? We're gonna shut you down, right? And so I think you have to be careful, be mindful of what your personal definition is of stopping is, and then tackling that.
And I'll just say too that Royce, you bring up a good point, because when COVID and everything just kind of really just was at a moment in time and peak time at the organization at IABD, all of us, we were working harder and more more often, more and longer hours than we had being in the office. And so it really was, I don't know, Omar, I don't remember what day it was. I was just like, hold up. Let's take a moment for real. And I wrote a letter about it, and I was like, hold up, everybody. Like, this is, yes, we need to really be mindful, certainly, of what's happening in the world and the circumstances around that. But physically, mentally, spiritually, we were just like torn down and burned out. And so it was like physically stopping and putting a stop, and then saying, okay, now that we've stopped, what is it that we're going to actually take back on to continue to do the work and move things forward? So that was a real critical and pivotal point in this moment that we are currently in, this movement that we're currently in. That really was, I think, an eye opener for all of us within the organization.
What you're describing, DST, Denise, Royce.
No, that's fine.
It's really the real self-care. I think sometimes we've had a misunderstanding of what self-care is. Oh, I'm going to the spot. But when all that shut down, that means your self-care shuts down. And the real self-care wasn't being able to name, those feelings that we're having, also being able to define it, right? And then figure out, how can I address this? Because self-care is all in how we think, not necessarily what we can afford, or if we can go on trips. Like, that too is considered self-care, but what happens when you can't do that? And so we're literally, that is what we're discussing now, that the true self-care is how we end up defining, how we're getting through these obstacles.
And hopefully we take everything we are learning right now in COVID, and when we come out of this thing, we keep it going and really keep taking care of ourselves, because that's what we tend to say, oh, okay, because I am right here, this should not be a conditional moment. This should be a moving forward. I'm going to always do these things pending us finding and figuring out what really works for us.
Yeah.
So moving us forward a little bit, being mindful of time, as we have been sitting in this space, how do you think we will come out, both for dance and regional theater, and what changes do we think we will see coming out? And I'm actually, because Neel, you are working on a very big endeavor, I'm gonna start with you.
Oh God, yeah, it's been crazy. So the big endeavor, for those who don't know, is just before, at the end of last year, last year, we got a huge grant from the city of Chicago to build a theater on the south side of Chicago. And if you're familiar with the arts scene, most of the theater and community engagement, as far as around like arts, is on the north side. So this is a huge deal, and it's being built by two, young career professionals, Black career professionals. So we were like, yay, yay, yay. And then the pandemic hit, and it was like, how are we going to raise, upwards of $6 million to build a building during a pandemic? It's been quite, I don't even know how to describe it. It's been better than I ever expected, because while it gave us a moment of uncertainty, where we were like, and honestly, like in regional theater, the playing field has really been sort of leveled, because a lot of these organizations who were running in $14 million budgets, $20 million budgets, had to cut their staff, have had to like really cut back on everything that they're doing, where we were a theater coming into growth. So it's really, for us, it's been it's been crazy, but also a difference of perspective. We were building this theater based on an old model. I mean, a lot of movements, both with the arts, as far as like social justice, as far as like, who's running these organizations. We see you, white American theater, like all these movements have been sparked in this time. And we were sort of already ahead of that curve. So it's been interesting, sort of. My partner, the artistic director, he always said we became industry leaders overnight. And like, the first time he said that to me, I didn't believe it. I was like, what are you talking about? I said, we are two kids trying to build a theater on the South Side. And he's like, no, our organization was founded on being a diverse institution, being an institution of inclusivity, being an institution that sort of broke down a lot of those barriers, and focused on community. While we couldn't be on stage, we had 2 productions that we were planning on doing. We shifted those resources to community. So we did a pop-up shop, gave the proceeds to local organizations who were already doing the work for community, passing out food, like the organizations, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel for ourselves. And we also passed out masks. Like we immediately were like, we're not going to be able to put anything on stage. So how can we take what we have and really give it to a community that we hope to be a part of? So it's been, both exciting and interesting, but really gets us thinking about the model of regional theater and why we're here and whose stories we're trying to tell, and, who's involved in that process. I know I keep mentioning the project that I did with Kathy, but we were able to bring in students to watch production meetings, because it doesn't matter now. You can be in Kathy in North Carolina, and we meeting with students on the South Side of Chicago, and they get to talk to that history and that knowledge, and like, so even being able to be more flexible, to be more creative, has been super interesting during this time. I was scared at first, but now I'm in it.
Kathy, Noelle, as technicians, how do you all?
I'm a designer.
Designers, excuse me. That is a big difference.
Yes, it is. Okay. Neel is in a very unique position as compared to what's happened with a lot of the regional theaters, because I've been doing series of panels with other designers, producers at regional theater. It's going to be difficult after this pandemic, and we don't know when it's going to end. But when you look at some of the major theaters that operate with millions and millions of dollars, they've laid off 200, 300 people, and some of the regional theaters are also talking about they can't hire anybody that's not local. It's going to be very difficult, or we can only bring in 2 people per show, if that includes actors and and designers. Budgets are going to be smaller for productions. And in a way, I think that's good, because some of these shows I think are just overproduced anyway. Like I saw a production of, what was it? I didn't see it, but it was a production of the Amen Corn on this humongous stage. Or I saw a Soldiers play on Broadway, and the original production was so much better. It was in a small, intimate space. So in a way that might be good, we won't have these humongous budgets for, shows that require a lot less. So yeah, it's going to be difficult. Like I say, we don't know when this is going to end. Broadway's already extended till May, that nothing's going to happen till May. So, and I think a lot of the regional theaters have to follow suit. And also we have to deal with guidelines from the unions. So I have a show that's supposed to open in January. I don't know if that's going to happen, or one in February and then one in May. I have no idea if that's going to happen. And a lot of theaters are trying to be very innovative, doing shows online and stuff. They got to bring in some kind of income.
Got to figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been difficult. Go ahead.
Say, I haven't worked so much in theater as much recently, but I know that I can say, and also speaking with colleagues and even those past panelists on the show, one of my concerns are skeleton crews.
Yes.
And yeah, we are all multifaceted. That doesn't mean that we are expecting to light the show, be a house manager, design it. You're running so many different positions. So that's one thing that I am, anxious to look and see how that is going to, how they're going to work that out. But I am a little concerned about skeleton crews and putting so much more on our technicians and electricians and our designers, just because they have the capability and the knowledge of another position. And yeah, that is my my concern.
It's interesting because I feel like that's also being pushed up against this like thing in theater and regional theater about fair wages, about like all these other like, you know, inclusivity, about like, who are you working with and why, and not, you know, this getting away from its homogeneous sort of reality. So it'll be interesting in the like, we can't afford to bring in as many people, but also we want to work with a more diverse group of individuals. It's like, how are those two things going to compete when we get out of this? Who knows? That'll be something interesting to figure out.
I'm gonna segue you, Denise. I think I'm gonna take this where you're going. But I'm gonna bring something else into this COVID, because we were living in COVID. Everybody got to sit by themselves and really be a little bit more reflective and pay attention to the news. And then George Floyd happened. And so then we got everybody to say, oh, this is how most sane people to say, this is how we have been mistreating Black people, and this is what systemic racism and oppression looks like. And then you get all of these responses from dance companies and regional theater saying, well, this is how we're going to show up. And I've been saying right our wrongs or be better. Which a little bit also talks about the allocation of resources from a funding body, as well as how those business entities allocate those resources that they have received to be inclusive, et cetera. How does that play into all of this? I think, Denise, that was probably where you were going. It may not have been, but go ahead.
Yeah, deep there.
No, I mean, you were headed that way, and I was headed that way. We all know, right, that this model is not sustainable, right? Everybody on this Zoom call knows that this model that we are currently in is not sustainable. And so it does make us think a lot differently about what it looks like when we come out on the other side, and who is actually coming out on the other side as well in all of these conversations and in this unsustainable model. And so, yeah, the funding community and as well as our community has a lot of deep thinking to do around what exactly is a level playing field, to be quite honest, Neel. It was, you know, I don't think the playing field is even, to be honest with you. I don't think it's even. I don't think it's flattened, because there was already such a diversity.
I'm with you. Trust me.
Within our
with you.
Within our field. But it does make us think about, so what are the next steps to really obtain what I believe we all want on the other side of this, which is opportunity and access for everyone. Period.
Yes, what she said.
Royce, Dr. Banks, anyone else want to?
Okay, well, I go ahead.
I was gonna actually ask you a question, Rogí, because I feel like one of the things with all these, I mean, we sort of started to get into it, but with these layoffs and with this like uncertainty, I feel like I've seen friends and colleagues who are really not handling it well. I mean, this is part of the reason why we're even doing this discussion. So it's just, I mean, I just want to put a pin in the like uncertainty that is there, that it's like, how do you plan and how do you pivot when the goal keeps getting 6 months further away, a year further away, before you're even hearing if you could produce or you have a contract? Or, I mean, everybody I know, I mean, is saying like, I lost 6 months worth of work and then got something and then that fell through, you know what I mean? So just that mental aspect is definitely looming over all of this.
Definitely. We'd be lying if we're saying that, you know, that livelihood is not always at the forefront of our brains. And so this has certainly impacted people's livelihood. One thing that I do appreciate that as I sat here and I was jotting down some notes and just hearing how, even with the project that you're working on, words like shift, being flexible, creative, repurposing, if you're staying true, if our companies are staying true to their visions, their objectives, their goals, and keep those at the forefront versus essentially the chase after the money or trying to fight over that, because I do think that is how you end up, as Noelle said earlier, with overworking your techs, Or, you know, I wish that our school system was having some of the same conversations, right, around reopening in May. We have school systems trying to open up next month. And we're like, why? Because they're trying to race to see who can open first, but is that the safest thing to do? Are we really thinking about, you know, and so if you shift, if you're flexible, creativity and courage go hand in hand. It takes a lot of courage, right? And I remember that from a summer camp I used to every summer, creativity and courage go hand in hand. And so those companies that are courageous, that are taking this time to stop, define why they're stopping so that they can think ahead about longevity. Like you said, analyzing the community, what are the community's needs and how can some of those needs be met without thinking about the money? And I know that's hard, not thinking about the money, but if we want longevity in our businesses, you do have to figure out how to make that shift and using the people that you work with to also do that, you know. And I don't, sometimes a lot of our, I've seen where conversations are had at the top and they're not including the people that they work with and that report to them or, you know, in working for it. So I think that is so important. Definitely checking on folks if there's a way that you can support them, right? Because I've made meals for folks, you know, invite you over for dinner. It's not necessarily, we don't have to think about it in a sense of money. But going back to that barter system, if you will, all the way back there, you know, what can we trade amongst each other to sustain versus putting all of our energy and thinking about how can we get this money?
There's, I think, looking at it from maybe another angle, as far as getting through it and then also after. So since I'm dealing with a lot of students and trying to help them to figure out how to get through it. I'll give an example. Dr. Rogers just talked about mindset, right? When we're out in the real world, right, and you get accustomed to, and you aren't in the bubble, right, protected by I want to say they are protected by the university, protected by the academy, or protected by wherever you are, as dancers or artists, right? You're not protected. So now you're out on your own. So that mindset, that drive, that thing, your passion, all those things, like it has to be like instilled in you, or you have that voice, you don't have that person behind you pushing you anymore. Then there's also the thing where some people, the art form or the studio or your mentors is your sanctuary, right? So now you have people and they don't want to go home because their home life is not mentally stable for them. So then they found their stability. They have found their fire that has lit them to proceed and to be whatever, to move and to live, whatever that means to them in the studio, in the theater house, or in the black box, or behind the light. They found purpose. So now this light so how do you help them to keep this light, this flame going, right? Now they're being discouraged because where they used to go or what they used to rely on now has been taken away from them. And then so now there is no quote unquote home. So then, and for artists who have already been out, I think, in the real world and come and having to fend for themselves and going through that, you know, those auditions and not having work here and understanding how to, I guess, figure out a way to mentally stay focused and driven and on your mission, on your passion, on your purpose. You've had a little more time to deal with that. But now these youngsters or these kids who haven't really gotten into the real world yet don't know what that is. Because, and so I am worried about them in this particular moment now, but also when this ends, are they going to be to the point where they don't even want to do this anymore, tackle it anymore, or think about it anymore because don't understand why they're disgusted with the thought of it? Or you understand what I'm trying to say? Because the things I'm trying to say. So these are some of the worries that I actually have just talking to some of the students and trying and listening to the things that they are going through right now. because they're stuck in a box that they were able to leave and actually get out of and find a sanctuary to, you know, like I said, to live and to keep living and to be motivated and to help be, you know, positive in society.
So that, what you just shared makes me think about something that I've always said about, you know, now could be that time. I wonder how connected are those students, speaking about connection, to the alum, to our alum, right? When I think about all of the reconnecting that happened during the Chadwick Boseman tribute. And I think that I don't know how many conversations, you know, after that ensued amongst people who were so happy. I was following the chat, just reading, and how happy people were to reconnect. And one thought that popped into my head is, how can we connect our students to all of these alum who are looking to have that conversation to help them, you know, keep that vision, right? Keep their eyes on the prize, and to also learn how to shift and be flexible during this time. There is nothing more rich, we say this all the time, than networks and connections. I mean, we know that coming from Howard. And as an alum who's often, you know, really between my Detroit Alumni Club and the Greater Washington Alumni Club, have talked about the importance of helping our students understand while they're at Howard, how strong this connection is, so that when they do leave, right, they're ready to not only contribute, right, contribute back, but be also, you know, that link that supports the next generation and cohort of students coming through. So, you know, I certainly hope, you know, if that isn't already happening, I think that that could really help the students that you're speaking of that, you know, are not really sure how to navigate this thing, because we have so many alum that can help keep that light and that fire ignited through conversation. I also didn't want to be remiss without doubling back to, I forgot who brought it up, but in terms of when, oh, you did, Omar, the George Floyd, and how everyone came out the woodwork, knowing who our allies are. Everybody who is interested is not an ally. And so what I would hate to happen, because our companies, business owners, entrepreneurs are not stopping and redefining like why you're stopping and what is my greater vision, that you get connected to what you thought was an ally that truly isn't. And then once we come out of this, you don't end up on top where you thought you were going to be, because you connected to the wrong person or the wrong, you know, entity. So, because it's not just happening in the dance world, we saw it everywhere. I mean, everyone was, you know, blackout, you know, we're doing a sale for, and I was like, whoa, that's kind of rude. Like, what? Y'all are using this, you know, essentially to capitalize off of it. And so knowing true allyship is going to be very important during this time.
I mean, we saw it with Breonna Taylor, the 160 something days of posts with her name, et cetera, and her justice. She didn't receive justice. The wall received justice. But what we got were companies parading her name, her face, her likeness, and people benefiting from it. And so how do we, and I'm gonna kind of make up a question as we go into it, and kind of switch us into the community space that I talked about previously, of like, how do we as a community shore each other up? I know that like when I was at Howard, once I moved off campus, one of the things that I was adamant about doing that freshman week was all the musical theater students come over, I'm gonna cook dinner, and let's like make sure that the new musical theater students know we got them for these 4 years that they are all together. And that isn't anything, I don't think that, you know, Charles used to cook Thanksgiving dinner and everybody would go to his house, or there is the family that we know, as we all hopped on the call today and was like, oh, look, hey, we all here. How do we, that reach back? But not just in the Howard space, but beyond, like, where do we go in those larger spaces to say, look, I know that you were here, and you were here, like Neel, you were at Steppenwolf for a little bit, and I was at the Public. How I see you in this space, this very white space that has named that it wants to be for us, but we all know underneath all of that are some things, but how do we make sure that people feel safe in those spaces? Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I guess I would be sad if I didn't mention moments like this. Cause like you said, we got on this call, and thank you to Noelle for like asking me to do this. Cause I would have been doing 8 other things, but Noelle was like, no, like I was like, no, I have to do this. Like canceled other things that I had planned, but I was like, no, this is more important. But also, I mean, it's staying connected. It's the mentorship. You know, like you said, we were at very white led, continue to be white led institutions, and having those friends that were having similar experiences were great. I mean, I would talk to Marjan Wolf all the time, who was another alumni of the Howard program. Like we would just get on the phone and chat about everything in ways that we see things happening outside of, you know, we were fortunate. And I say it every day when I talk to my other like Black and brown people doing theater. I'm like, I was fortunate. I went to Howard, so I knew we did this. I knew we did this, and I knew we did this in every single area. So it's really continuing to stress that, like, you know, one of the hugest parts about building this space and being a Howard person is like, I want to make sure other Howard students immediately come. Y'all want to work at this theater? Y'all want to get some experience? Like, let's come and do it. Finding opportunities and opening doors, I think, is going to be super, super valuable in the future, because you know, that's something that we didn't have. When I mean, I was lucky. I had Nigel, who worked at Steppenwolf before me, and he kept it 150%. If you know Nigel will tell you the real. Another Howard alum. Yeah. He had worked there the year before I did, and he gave me everything I needed to know to be successful, to feel supported, to watch out for, to look out for. So I mean, just continuing to be that resource for others has been a huge thing for me, even during this pandemic. Like, I also work at an educational institution, University of Chicago, for the Black and brown students who are like, I mean, for all the students, of course, but like, especially for the Black and brown students who are like, where do I see myself in regional theater right now, or in theater, or in dance? You know, you all just did I'm saying you all, pointing at the screen, Denise and Omar, they did a program all surrounding Black dance that happened to come to the University of Chicago. And what, I mean, I think me and Omar immediately connected, because those are those amazing opportunities where we have to reach out and to each other, but also to others we know, to make sure that they know about it.
Yeah. One of the things I did about 8 years ago, and it's gotten bigger, I have a Facebook page called Black Designers. It's not just for Black designers, but it's anybody in the technical areas or production area. And every now and then we'll have a couple of Zoom meetings, but some people are just shy to talk in a big group. So a lot of particularly the younger people, I talk to one-on-one. I don't know if I'm skipping ahead because you have a question about young people who just gotten out of school. So yes, it's really difficult, because I've been talking to some young people this past week who just finished grad school. They didn't have the graduation. They didn't do their final production. They had internships that were, you know, discontinued because of COVID. And so we've just been trying to do, I don't know, a variety of things, you know, getting some of the lighting people together. It's like, oh, there's some new programs out. Let's work together with some of the more experienced designers, just connecting them so they don't feel like they're so alone. And we'll probably have a Zoom group meeting, I don't know, in a little bit to, you know, learn some new programs. Maybe the costume designers will get together, but it's a way of making a community and connecting with people. So that Facebook group has been, you know, very, very good. And we try and post things about jobs, and if I know of somebody, because right now a lot of people are looking for teachers. And I'm always telling people, you know, get your MFA. It's better to have it than not to have it, particularly in a time right now where someone is saying, oh, we need an online teacher. Do you know anybody? So it's a way to stay connected and to network. So that's been good. But yeah, a lot of these young people are really going through a tough time. You know, they're not making any money. They're back at home. Like you said, they may not, whether it's a good place to be or not, you know, you don't want to be 21 back at home. So they're having a lot to deal with.
I'm getting the notification about time, but I'm gonna ask Royce, just as I brought in the community space, as a dancer. So IBD, has the Equity Project, and we have spent the last 3 is my magical number for all of our programs. 3 years working with 20 of the premier ballet companies in the US. Royce, as a dancer, ABT, what thoughts, feelings, navigating that space? Yeah. Kind of in a what was it like then? What would you say to somebody now? All of that.
What would I say to somebody? I was just having a conversation about this. I think there's definitely that support definitely has to be there. I think for our young artists and sometimes what I've noticed is that it's still very hidden, and a lot of the artists, a lot of the young don't really see what's happening still to them, because it's I don't want to say conniving. That's not the word what I'm looking for. It's the only word I can think of right now. It's like, oh, I see you, but it's not, I see you, but you know what I mean? And some of the companies are trying, they are, but it's still baffling as to how oblivious they are to what's right in front of them. And it has always been right in front of them, like for so long. And some of the same things that we're saying now, I just definitely remember, like, personally having to go through 20 years ago, and saying some of these things 20 years ago. But a lot of the people who I was standing with or next to now 20 years ago are now the company directors or the company, artistic, or they're doing, or executive directors, or these different things. So you know what's happening or what's been happening, and because you've lived it, you've been in it. But for some reason, you still choose to walk with that particular blind on, and still make all these different things that are happening happen with pretending that you don't know that they're happening. Or, you understand what I'm trying to say? So, walking the walk is different from, is different from putting particular things like, okay, now we put this out, or we've written this statement, or we're having meetings, with our Black and Brown company members and things like that. And okay, so all right, great, this is good. Okay, good. So now let's keep moving and keep doing what we want to do anyway, because we've appeased the community for a short amount of time, or a long enough amount of time to shut them up, right? Or to have them to, like, take a step back, and then we just roll around and come back and do the same thing. So how do you keep that ball rolling? How do you keep making these changes? How do you implement the changes on a foundational level? How do I take some of the people that I grew up with or went through the trenches with, who know these things and now in these positions? How do you get them to like really shout out and say, okay, I remember this, you went through this, he went through that, she went through this, I understand what this is, I know what this is, and I know I'm not doing my part. So how do we get them? Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah, what I'm trying to say, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It definitely makes sense, Royce, because what you're naming is the system. It's a system that's built on capitalism, and it really plays into this conversation, particularly around Black and brown people in this profession. We have two choices, I believe. We have one choice, which is to continue to operate within the system, which is happening. And that's when I was referencing, the playing field and it being evened out. It's not, but we're continuing to operate in this paradigm. We keep talking about a paradigm shift. I haven't experienced it yet. I don't know about you all, but I haven't experienced it yet. There's that, or we Black and brown people have to make a decision about whether or not we will still engage in the system and or create our own. And I think there are people who are talking about that, but I'm not sure if we're really ready to go that route, to be quite honest, because it's not capitalized. So there, you know, there's this thing called money that does come into play in a lot of these conversations, but we have to decide like how we are actually going to utilize the money that our communities have, which I don't think we've narrowed down yet. And so, you know, kind of being a leader of a service organization, it's interesting the conversations that I'm a part of now and listening to both sides of the conversation, because there are marvelous things that are happening. There are foundations that are giving large sums of money. There's what I call white guilt money that's coming to our organizations, that is helping us to move things along. But again, the system has not changed. And there's a lot of conversation about whether or not we want to dismantle it or build on top of it. When you asked the opening question about inquisitive, I'm still inquiring. I'm still questioning and wondering how we are all going to come to the same decision and whether or not that's possible within this field to get us started again. Because right now everyone is in such a mode of survival, it is difficult to have these conversations when you're trying to save your organizations and your livelihood. When I think about the Black dance sector, we have people who, you know, have been on calls, literally just, they're crying. They don't know if they're going to be able to keep their doors open. And these are for organizations that have brick and mortar facilities, you know, dance schools and institutions. They don't know like next month if they're going to be able to sustain this mode of operation. And so there's a lot of conversation around these systems that, you know, being here in America, that we grow into, we operate within them. But this is an opportunity for us to really, I feel, interrogate and really question those who hold seats of power to make decisions that will actually change and shift the field. I'm still waiting. I am a hopeful person, but it is a process that I've only seen money thrown at the issue, but not the actual issue being interrogated and discussed and a new way of operating figured out yet.
Yeah, because that money is not sustainable. You give me a lump of some money right now and then forget about me isn't going to help my organization. And just to your point about those spaces that some of these organizations are creating are very performative. It's like, I did it, so like y'all saw that I did it, or like I released a statement so y'all saw that I did it, but it's not any, you know, weight or water behind it. So yeah.
I don't know. I'd like to think I'm seeing some change, because usually I'm not that optimistic over 40 years, but I'm not keeping up with dance as much as I am with theater, but I'm beginning to see some theaters or appointing Black folks in position as associate artistic director, or I'm seeing this with museums too. You know, I keep it with the museum field. So I'm seeing some small changes being made, but like you said, we don't know what's going to happen when we get to the other end of COVID, you know. Like I said, a lot of these theaters won't survive, and we know that. If we go on like this for another year, I think if we go through these, well, next spring, I don't know. I don't know if many of these theaters are going to survive unless they come up with some amazing ideas. I know a lot of theaters are filming plays. You know, they've got to come up with something. Trying to sell them to Netflix. There's talk about a theater channel, but you know, these artistic directors, they've got to come up with something. I'm supposed to be doing a play that we're going to film and then sell tickets. I think that was one of your questions coming up. I'm sorry.
That is the perfect segue, because Noelle is chatting me up in in the box saying, so you're gonna get to these virtual performances. So like, let's kind of as our last moment, and in the community space, how do we build? So what is it in this virtual space? Some of the live virtual performance notes that we've got are, what does it look like? Do you lose some of the feeling of not being in the house? But how do we?
It's not the same as
Absolutely.
performance.
But how do we communicate? How do we still drive the point home? How do we bring people in a virtual space?
I do think you do get to work with more different collaborators. I think it has opened a space for the collaboration of theater and film and dance, even in a very exciting way. I do think my mom would be like, take your hands away from your face. But yeah, I think just the diversity of collaborators. But I do want to touch on a real quick point where you mentioned unions, Kathy, and I think that it's going to start with that too, because all these unions are, and these playwrights and they like, I don't want to see my play filmed, or I don't want to. It's like barriers beyond barriers going on over here.
Well, it's also new for lighting designers, because I don't like film. So I'm going to be working on projects where I'm having to light it as they're calling it theater film, and then a lot of the film people like, well, I've never shot for the stage, so so it's going to be new for all of us. And I think I think this method will be something that we're going to have to keep even after COVID, because one of the things that it expands our audience. Everybody can't go to New York or go to DC and see a premiere of something, but I mean, that's one of the nice things about filming it. In the case of Hamilton, I wasn't going to spend $200 to see Hamilton. I saw it for $6.99 and it was fine on Disney Plus. So I think, in a way, that's if we film things like a Hamilton, or if you saw any of the productions from the National Theatre of London, they were amazing. I don't know if anybody saw those shows. If they're filmed that way, you are reaching a wider audience. But no, it's not the same as, being there in person and reacting to what's going on stage. And I know it's hard for certain actors, being in a musical and not hearing anybody respond, or being in certain plays. It's very different,
And I was having, I was having a conversation with her yesterday about this, because, the film and crossover actors and actresses have already been able to home in on this particular thing we're talking about. Like, how do you get that same experience, right? How do you pull people to through the screen? Like, how do you make people, when they're watching movies, cry, or certain scenes? Like for instance, let's talk. I mean, all of us have seen Coming to America. I can pretty much say every single line, from Coming to America, what 20 years ago. Like it affects you. That industry has already, I guess, figured out. Well, then there's things that do bomb, but there's a certain level of people who, in that industry, have already figured out how to reach and grab the emotion of people and having them on the edge of their seats, or thinking about life or whatever from that realm. So I think we, as the realm that we're in, are on the back end as trying to figure out how to do those things. But at the same time, there are videos, and then there are companies, or just what I remember growing up and watching VHS all the time, rewinding over and over and over, because that artist jumped off the screen. I remember, whatever these companies are, but now it has to be every company, every single artist, so now how does that become the norm, versus I'm going to show this VHS to these students because I know this is going to grab their attention. And so I think that's almost similar where we're having to go, because I just had a commission in a performance that actually went up this particular couple of days ago, and it was hard because I'm here in DC and the dancers are in Ohio, And so to remount the work and to try to get them to emote what I need them to emote, you know, physically, mentally, all the nuances, all the dynamics, the quality, the level changes, like it's like through the screen, it is really hard, but it's possible because we have videos and things that of artists who can do that. So how does that become the norm, right? So, yeah.
We wanted to be the norm. So I'm going to push back and say, hell no, I want to be in the theater. I'm sorry.
I'm with you.
You know,
I agree.
There is a level, I think there is a degree or a level of this that we can certainly do on the screen, but then there is absolutely a point where it has to be in person. So just restore, you know,
it's the reason you go to church. It's the reason it's that community shared experience. And I don't think that'll ever go away. And just the magic that like that one night of dance, that one night of a play is done differently. Like it could be the same thing and it could be felt differently every single night. I don't think we'll ever get away from wanting that. I'm with you.
I think but I'm for the expansion though. I'm saying, yes, it's an expansion.
Yeah, you can expand it, but it's not the same as the live theater.
Exactly.
No.
It's from the perspective of not just the audience, right? Because I will say that, you know, in the space that I am in currently, I am more of an audience member. I'm not in the thick of the arts anymore, but the artist, I mean, like I said, we're talking about the audience, but the artist also needs that connection, and they're not getting that at all with everything being transformed into the virtual space. For the dancers, I was just sitting here, actually, that's why I got tongue-tied, thinking about my dancing years. I did modern dance when I was younger, band dancing, like, how do you translate all that? That's not happening, right? Even when I mentioned earlier about being in a sorority, and we've been doing our virtual stroll, but it is not the same as when I was strolling in person. We obviously know that, you know, so there are some things you just can't recreate. So I am also not hoping that, I don't want this to be the norm.
Because I was giving thought to, you can't partner, but how do you, what does a love scene look like when, like, there's a level of intimacy that is, and I thought of love scene just because I'm thinking it's about certain plays, and you can't sit across the couch, and I'm not getting that because I'm looking at you. I can deliver a whole monologue, but you don't feel me sitting next to you and the energy that just radiates between two people because they are next to each other. So there's a level of,
and the light that casts down across the
face.
I mean, like, it's all of that. It is.
There's all that, like, they're all the units that come together to make that hour and a half, that 3 hours that you sit in a theater with a community of people because you are all experiencing something together. It's gone. And we can do all the things, but it's like, ain't nobody write no plays for that. Ain't nobody written no play for me to sit up here on a Zoom screen and say, hey, I want to do this, and I want to talk to you this way. And then we can also name Zoom fatigue is real.
Yes.
And so at the end of a 6-hour workday that you've been sitting at your screen looking, I'm not logging in to say, oh, I want to go watch this new Shakespeare play that Willie, like, I'm not trying to do that because I don't want to spend another 3 hours on Zoom.
It's no longer an escape. The arts was like, it's an escape for us from that 9 to 5, and why you want to go see a show at 7 o'clock on a Friday. Like, I just worked a full week, I'm ready to go sit back, escape into this new world that, you know, that we as designers, technicians, actors, actresses, dancers, we create these worlds for them. They now, like, I saw Hamilton. Personally, I couldn't get into it.
You have to see it more than once. I'm gonna name that for you. I slept through it the first time I saw it.
I don't even.
You saw it live?
No,
I've seen it.
I didn't get the opportunity to see it live, unfortunately.
You saw it on TV.
Omar, you should have took Omar's ticket. He slept through it.
I've also seen it 8 times. I slept through the first time hard. Like,
you're talking about in person.
Yes, in person.
That's different.
You
You're
were tired.
like,
Well, she couldn't get into it on TV.
I'm sorry, like they do The Lion King. I'll be able to get into that because I've seen it on Broadway multiple times. So like that I understand, but when you are trying to recreate a whole experience for somebody that has never been there before or has been there for a different production, they have a level of expectations that you are just unaware of and you're not able to meet. I would say, as personally as a designer and a stage manager and a technician, my goal is to create indelible moments, both individually and collectively at the same time. I don't know how you can translate that through a screen. And that's just me. Hopefully it's not, but that's just me.
I think she's right, but I think there's also an interesting perspective as an audience member. You set expectations, and I'm like, these newer, younger audiences that we have to bring in if we want what we do to continue, I think they're going to have a different expectation once we get back into the space, because right now there's so much access. I can meet everybody on a Zoom screen, but now like it's just going to be different. I think there's exciting possibilities with the access that virtual has created that I would love to see some of that flow into the live performance version of that. And I'm not saying so that's why I'm like on the fence about it. I am like, this is amazing and we're expanding our art and our craft, but there's nothing like that first time you see in The Color Purple on Broadway. You ain't gonna never get that, you know what I mean? So it's like those two things, I think we're gonna have to find a way for them to work in conjunction with one another.
We have to discover what the balance is going to be. There's got to be a balance to it.
For artists in terms of mental health, right? And that's the same thing with telehealth services. I never set out to be a virtual school psychologist. And so I've done my best work in person. And so to try to recreate that, right? When clients come to see me out, the offices, there's a mood, there's a whole, and some of those skill sets I transfer from the arts, and now I'm like, what am I supposed to do? This screen, this fourth wall is really bothering me. So certainly, we're going to find some ways, right? Because at the end of the day, I think that, as we all said, because it's more accessible, we're able to see things that we've never been able to see before. And so that is a benefit. But certainly, trying to figure out how to achieve the same magic, the same indelible moment, as Noelle mentioned, I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening.
Somebody gonna think of it, like you said, creativity and courage.
We just need some holograms.
It might not be us, but somebody's gonna figure it out.
It's gonna be somebody Black. Let me say this.
No, I mean us on this call. I ain't mean it ain't gonna be us. Yeah, it's gonna
this
be
world
us,
does not move without Black creativity. Hello.
Let's keep it real. But no, yeah. I'm excited for whoever figures it out. I'm excited to see it happen.
Well, everybody, I like how we just kind of wrap that on up. It is our time. We made it. I'm gonna ask before I make these end notes that have been sent over to me. A charge from us to the people watching. Let's start with Rogí.
Sure. I guess my charge, and I was thinking about it in terms of a community, from a community perspective, of connecting those dots, because I have kept up, right, with worldly news a lot more, being stuck in the house than I have before. And so with hashtag Justice for Breonna, I'm wondering, I'm thinking about how intentional her mother and her family were in terms of the civil case, right? Everyone was focused on like the money, but she was willing not to accept the money unless you are going to change, with the body cameras, you're going to change some of these other police reform policies that were in place. And so I'm wondering, how can we borrow that idea from that space, and thinking about how can we hold the community theater owners accountable, as Royce was saying earlier. You knew this was a problem. We were both in the trenches, and now, so can we borrow from that in a sense of layering the support? I'm not willing to engage in this professional relationship with you just for the money. how can we make sure that there's some longevity to this relationship? And so that's my charge. It's hard. I know it is for all of us. In the same space of the skeleton crew, like we all know what that is, being spread thin. And so I know I have challenged myself. I'm not going to allow myself to be spread thin in my space. And I've had conversations with my colleagues, because the one that decides to do that, it messes it up for the rest of us. So how can we all charge ourselves to be on the path of what is right for the greater good in the community and not self-serving?
Cassie?
My charge is holding these theater companies accountable. They said this is what they're going to do on the other side of COVID, and I'm going to hold them to it. And also in terms of the educational theater, you know, hold them to, okay, you promised to bring in some Black designers or new faculty, because we are missing from these universities big time. So that's my charge, and that's what I've been working on. It's another thing I've been working on since I've been in.
Denise?
I saw this really inspiring quote the other day as I was flipping through social media. And it read, with the new day comes new strength and new thoughts. And I think that's the optimistic piece of my being. New day, new thoughts. So I want to leave people with thinking positively that it's a new day, that there are people, as Neel just said, who we don't know who they are, but we are waiting for them. We're waiting on you. So bring what you have. Don't sit on your gifts, because your gifts can change the world, can change a moment in time. And so even though this is a difficult moment in time, it's a new day. New thoughts are always welcome, because we need you.
Royce?
My charge is for people, I think just for people as a whole in general, to find, to look for and to really find honesty in awareness, honesty in attitude, honesty in compassion, honesty and empathy on just on a global level, on any and everything that's around you, to be way more aware of what's happening and what you're stepping into and how you're stepping into that, and then how you move through it.
Neel McNeill.
I mean, mine is super simple. You know, my charge is to take care of yourself, to take care of others, and to take care of the arts. And a way to do that is to vote. So make sure that you get out there and vote. You call your legislators. This is an industry that will not survive without all of us doing our part. So I mean, regardless of if you're an actor, an artist, but you enjoy the arts. The arts are all around us. They're in everything that we do. So I just charge us to be better to each other, to be better to ourselves, and that we I don't want to say we're in it together, because that's like the most overused statement right now, but it really is going to take all of us if we want the arts to continue. So vote.
I was going, she jacked me, because I was literally like, okay, everybody's doing these really long ones. Mine's real simple. Go vote. But seriously, go vote. We're going to build back better, or whatever it is. We're going to build back better, but go vote, because we got to get out of this, and we need to remember humanity, because that is probably my charge, is that we remember humanity, and we put humans first. And then I'm going to kick it to Noelle to wrap us out.
Okay, thank you, Omar. Thank you, everyone. I would say my charge is to be mindful. Be mindful of your feelings, of your thoughts, and recognize your community and understand that we're not alone in this. And what you are feeling, someone else can be feeling the same way. The solution to a problem or a mental struggle that you've already overcome can help someone else out. And that's why I've created What's Up Roadie, How You Doing? That's where the how you doing comes from. really, like, how are you? I know I'm feeling some type of way, and I can't be the only person feeling like this. So reach out to your community. You know that there are those who could not handle it, and unfortunately, they're no longer with us. That has to stop. It is avoidable. And lastly, just like my panel, my colleagues, my friends, my family has stated, we all must vote. Your vote is important. Your vote matters. Now, if you are a little leery of the postal system and don't want to trust your vote with the United States postal system, or you don't feel comfortable going to the polls on November 3rd, or even going in for early voting, there is another option. You can apply for an absentee ballot, fill it out, and then you can walk it over to either your Board of Elections office, county clerk's office. They can receive and will submit your election ballots. So if you do feel uncomfortable mailing in your ballot or going to a polling center, you can apply for one and turn it into your Board of Elections. You can walk it in yourself. That is my last statement. I just want to make sure, we all want to make sure that everyone knows that your vote matters, and that everyone get out and vote and inform people of ways to vote. Again, we want to thank you all for being here, for shifting with us on our platform. We don't want to forget Protest Party TV. They have been so great for us throughout this season. Season 1 of What's Up Roadie was really something greater than I could have ever imagined. And it is going to grow. We are continuing to grow. We are getting ready for season 2 with new topics, panels, probably some saying panelists. You guys want to see anybody? Again, we just want you to make sure you follow the What's Up Roadie Facebook page, as well as the Instagram account, which is at What's Up Roadie. You can following those pages, it'll lead you straight to our website, which will have all of the past episodes up as well. Those are all on our YouTube channel, What's Up Roadie. I am Noelle Jordan. I thank all of you again, Omar, Neel, Royce, Rogí, Kathy, and Denise. That's right, Rogí, Wakanda forever. And we, as Howard, thank you, Rogí, for bringing that to my attention. And as Bison, we are here, and we want to thank Chadwick Boseman, because you have inspired us even more. As Bison, we understand we are rooted together, and we are growing, and we are blossoming. And thank you, everyone.
Happy homecoming.
Happy homecoming.
Hey, you.
You know. Thank you, Noelle.
Yeah.
Thank you, Noelle.
Thank you, Noelle.
Thank you so much.